it's the same with your brand or going for a job or any opportunity in your life, but we're not taught it in school. We inherit these things from our family. We copycat off people around our network.
Matt, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thanks for having me, Corey.
Yeah, I'm really pumped to get into this one. So I've been like researching you, and I first like heard about you and I went to the One Life Club and you like did your presentation, and I was like, man, I just connect with you so much. And you talked about like connecting with people and like, embracing your weirdness and embracing your quirkiness and embracing all those, parts about yourself that you may not initially like at the start. I was just like interested because with the social kung fu, with the Q media, with you working with some of like the biggest brands in Australia, as well as developing your own brand and all the rest of it, was like, what was that, journey like for you? I would say in your early 20s of being like breaking through.
Yeah, I wish I could say that I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I was teenager. It's very rare that it's the case. And I mean, for me, it started with creativity. So I was actually in the creative space. And when you're creative, you become very, I guess, acutely aware of, marketing things and how things look and how they connect. It's a great pattern recognition skill to have. And also, I was a musician. And I think being a musician to start off with, Corey, was one of the best training grounds for sales and marketing, because when you're a freelance guitarist and you're up against other people who are equally as good as you, it doesn't come down to how good you are anymore, because you're all pretty much the same. You can all play the same licks and read the sheets. It comes down to the things above that. So are you likable? Are you memorable? And there were the things I learned very, very young, because I'm like, I'm as good as that bloke, but I'm not going to get my foot in the door unless they actually hear me and see me and trust me. So it was the people skills that really got me through. So everything's built on that type of thing. And then direction was more, step by step as I got older, with wanting to be more of a grown up, like what's going to earn me the most, what's going to serve, how's that going to serve what I want to do with my life. So these days I'm thinking more about purpose stuff, but at the beginning stage, I was like, how do I even just earn a living to begin with off what I love doing? That was the tricky part.
Oh, tell me more about purpose stuff.
Okay, this is really cool. A lot of people can tell me why they got into what they're doing. I got into this business because there was a gap in the market and I wish something existed like this, but it never did. So that's why I started. Great. That's awesome. But can you tell me what you want from it? What you want from it is different from why you got into it. Because if you don't know what you want from your goal or from your dream, then guess what? You are a slave to that very thing. Like, it will make you resent everything in your life, because it's all about getting from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 9 to 10, for who? For the business, not for what's it serving. Like, what's it for? What do you want from it? So let's get really clear here. Like, do you want your goal, your business, to be able to give you $180,000 wage, pay for 2 cars, put you into 2 holidays a year, and sustain that for the next 10 years and still have a bit of profit left in your business? Like, that's a clear goal. And that's what I want from a business. And that's called a lifestyle business. And if you can get that clear, then guess what? You might be really close to achieving that, much closer than you think. But if you don't have that, then you're just going to be in this forever. You're going to get caught up in all the hustle mentality of you got to just chase the infinite number, and you don't know whenever is enough. And I think when you don't know when enough is enough, you end up being divorced, unhealthy, and hustling with no purpose. That's what I reckon.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. It's one thing that we teach like fundamentally, because I like the community that I run's called Set the Standard. The very first thing that we teach when people come in is purpose, and
Mm.
is like exactly what you said, which is why I was like, tell me more about purpose. And I couldn't agree anymore. For like the people that like I've worked with, is if there's no like sort of like why, what they get like from what they want to have from the business, like they like boundaries just go. Like
Mm.
there's no boundaries. They don't know how to implement them. They don't know there's other reasons. And like you're seeing people um, burn out, be unhappy, as you mentioned, divorce, all the rest of it, because they become a slave to the business.
Yeah,
And sometimes they're going down the wrong business for the wrong reasons, and they should have. Sometimes you look at something they're going down this way, and it's like maybe they should have chose one just right next to that path instead.
yeah. I reckon you got to try and just because you define the goal doesn't mean it's the end. It's just you're defining the peak of where you're aiming for, and you can change that. But you must have an end goal for your goal. It has to be like in any race or anything. There has to be a beginning and an end, or you don't know when done is done. Like that's the like even in all our systems in the world have when you have like in university or school, you know, when you graduate, like there's an X amount of time before you. So if that's a number or if it's a thing that you need to get, whatever it is, it's fine as long as you define it. If you don't know what that is, and there's unhealthy, you can go deep in this. What you probably do, Corey, is like you test the motives of what you're doing. That's what I'm into. That's another layer of purpose, I guess, is what is the benefit you're trying to get from what you're doing, and who is it for? You know, is it like I always had the phrase "so that" at the end of whatever I want to do. So I want to earn $1 billion so that I will be really cool in the eyes of the people who said I couldn't do this. That's my so that. Or I want to have this car so that I can pull the chicks. Or I want to have this so that there has to be so that.
Yeah, because that comes to where the marketing form that you use in terms of building a house, right?
Yeah.
Of like the foundations. And I find that so like simple but so genius because it's like the very first layer was like if I remember correctly, it was like, I've got photos of it on my phone. It was like that was like the purpose layer, right?
Mm.
Was
It
it
starts with
fulfillment? Oh,
Yeah, it starts with like there's a in my framework, there's a house of brand, house of personal branding, and the first layer is the invisible part, which is pretty much your key message, which is your
yeah.
purpose, which is around story and around values and around all that stuff, so that when you build upon that, like you're putting content out there and you're building products, it's a full circle of why you're doing it. So like if you looked at Batman, for example, which I love comic books. Sometimes they like the characters in superheroes are like the best personal brands in the world because they have a full circle of why they're a hero and why they're not. So Bruce Wayne is, if you think of Batman and you think of his abilities, his smartness, you know, his resourcefulness. But what you really are drawn to, what gives that character depth, is Bruce Wayne. And you can't have Batman without Bruce Wayne. And if you professionalize Batman, his smartness, his resourcefulness, his skills would be what you see on your LinkedIn profile. To be like,
Yeah, that's such a good way of putting it. Yeah.
and then the backstory is what makes you really trust him. He's like, I actually got into being Batman because I saw my parents die in an alleyway. It's like, oh, I connect with that. That makes so total sense why you fight crime. So when you can articulate your story like Batman, give me your origin story. So where did you grow up? And what key pivotal moment happened in your life which changed you? You're bitten by a radioactive spider, or something happened in all our lives to be able to help us get to this point. And the third point is, how what was the thing that made you choose this? Like, what was the thing that inspired you to choose this direction? And that was that light bulb moment of, this is how I became Batman, versus I saw my parents die in the alleyway. That was the medium part of the story that traumatized me. But he wasn't yet Batman. He had to decide to become fear itself and face it and to defeat those people that gave him purpose. So if you have those two combinations of backstory, Bruce Wayne, and Batman professionalism, like he's known for these he's got a logo, he's got an outfit, he's got skills and outcomes, a resume as Batman, but backstory, you've got a really good thing of trust and believability and capability. And that's what you need to be able to help sell yourself in the world, I think. And it's an authentic formula, I think, too.
Yeah, especially that whole authenticity piece. To learn that, did you study much on like the hero's journey, or did that just come through marketing?
It came through. I didn't do a course with any of this stuff. So one of the I think we all have a genius in us. We all have a sweet spot. And one of my, I guess, geniuses I have is I've got pattern recognition. So I have always been the king of analogies. Like, and I guess it's like a natural proclivity for philosophical thinking. So I'm like cause and effect, cause and effect. So what makes someone memorable? Why? And I scan my brain going, who's in my brain that I didn't choose to be there, but I still remember them? What makes them memorable? And I'm like, comic books. Okay. And went back and okay, who made this comic? What's the framework? And you eventually discover these things. And that's the Bible always talks about, sometimes like in the New Testament talks about how you don't need a teacher anymore to tell you how to do it. You just need the Spirit, and he will guide you, or they'll guide you in the way that you need to go. And I believe that when you're led by your curiosity, that is the Spirit within us to be able to forage and find these things. Yeah, and that's what I've done my whole life. I've been a very observational and intuitive seller. And then with doing social kung fu stuff, which is being studied by the University of Sydney, I'm the most unacademic dude in the world. I've submitted my work, and they're like, "Yeah, there's research to support this. We want to test this." I'm like, "Really? This is intuitive, observational, being led my whole life, and there's actually science to be able to suggest it actually is good." So I just want to encourage anyone out there that feels like that you're not nuts, mate. I thought I was nuts sometimes going, I can't really say exactly why, but I can connect it to these things. And I think that's why I base things on it.
I love it. And just like, or just bring a point, touch back onto, as you mentioning, like before, when you're saying with purpose, the main point is defining it. I did like a coaching day with Toby Pierce, and we just had like I just had like 8 hours with Toby Pierce, and I was just like, it was just like me, Toby, and a whiteboard, and we're just like going on there. It was sick. I was just like, the notes I was taking, I was like, and I remember one of the things is he was defining in regards to just like purpose for like your vision, your brand, your business, whatever it was. And it's funny because it's like I teach purpose for the individuals. I get to the whiteboard with Toby, and he's like, "We're doing purpose," and defining it, he was just like, "Why, what, and who."
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's your thing. So it's really like interesting that you were mentioning that beforehand. I just wanted to like bring some awareness to that. And I also want to bring some awareness like with the businesses that you're creating and the businesses that you've worked with, as well as being like a fit guy with like how much you know and like the music stuff as well. I'm like, that's a lot. Like that's just like a lot going on. And I can tell from you, you're someone who leads a lot. I'm assuming this is just like my own assumption that you lead a lot from passion. I can just tell there's like so much passion there, especially with social kung fu. Like for the listeners that don't know, please correct me if I'm wrong. There's like you're helping kids learn the communication skills to stop bullying, which I find is like amazing, as well as helping like Zero Ford, all the other people, their marketing campaigns and your own personal brand, and then doing stuff with Dame Walker. Dame was on the podcast. I was like a few months ago. I'm like, whoa,
It's a lot.
it's a
Yeah,
lot. It's cool.
it's a lot. And I have, that is the enemy against, I guess that would be a good challenge to what I do. I've been asked before, how come, there's that jack of all trades, but master of none. But I completely can debunk that. I think there is a process to be able to do multiple things and do them well. Like I have said in the past with some things that I was a general store at one point. In my early 20s, I was earning six figures doing six things. But it took six things to earn the six figures when I was in my 20s. And I'm like, that's just like not good, but they're all doing very well. So it proved to me, my ego, that I was talented. I was good enough at doing these things, but they could never fulfill their potential or be sustainable until I'm in my 50s and 60s doing that much. So I had to break down seven things into one thing. And then once I build that one thing, it gives me more scope to go to the second thing and the third thing and the fourth thing, because I've got the experience and the resource to be able to have more heads and brains. Because when you hire people, you're hiring a brain. You're hiring a brain for your business that brings a level of expertise and strategy and most importantly, attention to it. And when you're one brain trying to do seven things, that's just seven divided by 24 waking hours. So I think I think you can do multiple things really well at the same time, but it has to begin from a place of there has to be a core thing to begin with that helps resource yourself out to be able to do the other things.
What was your core thing?
When I began, it was music, and the core thing was gigging and doing corporate gigs and tutoring. And then this was like when I was a late teenager into my early 20s. Then I'm like, well, I've got a massive amount of students. So I started contracting other musos to be able to teach them. And then I built upon that. So I pretty much became a tutor and a tutor of tutors, and then an owner of a school of multiple schools of it, which gave me, as I kept scaling or growing, I realized that the one thing I was doing good across all 7 things I was doing was marketing. And I was like, that's one common thread. I'm like, wow, I saw myself as a musician. I proved myself as to families to trust me with their kids. And it's all through social media, digital marketing, through MySpace back in the day and all that. And this is the way. You've got to be where the people are. And you've got to, and I got really clear on what makes me different from other people, because I had competitors my whole life. So we're offering the same service. So we could go to a cafe and they offer the same flipping menu as each other. Smash a freaking latte. They're all the same. The quality might be different, but they're all the same price and stuff. So niching became really important, and communicating this core message that it's not about capability statements. It's about how I talk about my capabilities. It's about how I talk about the values of it. It's not just outcome. You need to show that, like your kid will get this, or my business will get you this outcome. But it's also, we are the business for families who want their kid to be mentored. That was like the first core thing. And I had runs to show for it. And then I'm like, there's a gap in the market. Social media is going to be a big thing. This was years ago. I'm going to take a punt and do that. So I was always risk adverse. Like I saw something coming and I would give it a crack, even if it cost me, even if it risked, my house or something like that. I would still go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Passion first. I love that. And that would have been such a gap that, like, do you find that core thing with like how you talk about it was what you worked with when you started helping marketing with like big companies as well, running their campaigns?
Yeah. It's surprising how you'd assume that the bigger company they are, the more they have it all together. Some of the biggest companies I've worked with are extremely unorganized, or they're very structured, but still so disconnected to what they're trying to do. And to their point, or to their credit, they still, Amex would hire an agency. You think they have all the money to hire in-house. Some of the biggest places still outsource. And I'm like, that's really, so there was some really like interesting mindset things that broke in me when working with big guys. So like, what do you need us for? Like, you guys are so big. So yeah, so they're good enough to go, we'll happily pay you a lot of money to be able to, because you specialize in this area, to be able to do it for us. And it's not a fixed cost for them. It's a campaign, or it's seasonal and cycles. So that's a cool thing that I've learned from working big brands.
That is awesome. And how does that like core message of like the reason why? Because what that lands for me is just like having the language to be able to like speak from the heart. Because I believe a lot of personal brands and a lot of like businesses have this vision or this reason why. And then like, obviously, and that's one of the things that sells, I'm assuming. But just like articulating that in a way is like difficult. Can you like explain to me that process, or help like walk me through how, and please correct me if I'm wrong as well. I'm saying,
Yeah, sure,
like,
yeah.
walk me through that process.
Yeah. So the goal for any professional, or for any business person, or for anyone who just wants love in their life, you have to be seen, to be heard, to be chosen. You have to be seen, to be heard, to be remembered. You have to have those things. You cannot be invisible and expect to be chosen. Like, it's just a dumb equation. So therefore, you have to talk to the girl, talk to the guy, but then what are you going to say to the guy or girl? How are you going to interact? And it's the same with your brand, or going for a job, or any opportunity in your life. But we're not taught it in school. We inherit these things from our family. We copycat off people around our network. So I think one of the core things we need to work out on with to begin to become seen is to work out a key message. So you got to become a very good historian of your own life, because you can speak about, when I use words, no matter what you say, it's content. It's content for people to judge you from. People only can judge you from what you show them and tell them. And if you didn't say anything and you didn't show yourself anywhere, there's no judge. So don't get over the idea of being judged. Everyone has to get over the idea that you will be judged in this life. The question isn't if you'll be judged or not. The question is, do people judge fairly? And what are you giving them as material to judge you about? So get your story right, get your history right, because that's your uncopyable thing of your life that no one can actually have any ownership of. It's your IP. So go back in your life and think about a time, drop time, line on a piece of paper. And like, what are the people and moments in my life that shaped me? And who are the key people in my life that taught me a lesson? And where are the key achievements in my life where I went from here to here? And where are the key moments in my life where my ass was hanging out of my pants and I couldn't afford to buy bread? Like, those are really great things to begin with. And then you move up from there to, well, what outcomes have I produced? If I've got any runs on the board from my profession, and what case studies do I have to show for these things? And if you don't have them right now, that's a dead set ringer of what you need to be aiming to achieve. Because there's this thing in life which is called the like Jim Rohn talks about it. It's the principle of deserving, and it's a biblical principle that only the harvest is reserved for the sowers. So you don't go to the bank and go, guys, I want $1 million, give it to me because I'm asking for it. Then they're going to be like, here you go, sir. They're going to be like, do you qualify? And you've got to qualify to be credible. You actually have to put yourself out there and achieve something. And I think it's like being lost in our messaging at the moment in the world. It's like hustle, yeah, and at the same time, listen to me because I've got an account and everyone else has that. Just listen to me. But like, your voice doesn't carry as much weight as some others. And it needs to be that way. If there's a doctor that has had 20 years experience and have done hundreds of surgeries talking about something, and you've read Wiki, there is a more authority with this bloke because he's done it. And you might be saying the same things, but you're going to choose this bloke because I'd rather him operate on me than him. He doesn't have any experience. He just has a lot of knowledge. This is called the knowledge. It's called a knowing doing gap. So a lot of people have this tendency to act like very confident and cocky about knowledge, but actually haven't got anything to show for it. But it gives them this false, the brain has this bias of, because I know it, I'm acting as if I've done it. And I'm like, nah, there is a huge gap right now for professionals and people to become experts in a field rather than celebrities. I think the age of celebrities is almost dead. I honestly think the media now are struggling to create celebrities. We're just completely just using the same type of people that we've used, the old guys. Because what created celebrities in the past was when we all watched the one little box at the one same time, where you had Idol and America's Got Talent. And that's how we created pop stars and all this stuff. And record labels used to do that because they used to control who makes it on the top 40 or not. No one gives a crap about the top 40 anymore. Like, it's TikTok and it's social media now that are becoming the new radio stations that give this is a hit or not. And so now I'm talking to people a guy named Mark down in Melbourne, AWM Media, he's the celebrity agent. He's like, I get asked for celebrities all the time for events, but I can't give them anyone. Like, they're all aging. They're famous from 20 years ago. Like, it's better to actually choose people who have a niche following, who are an expertise in that for that event. And like, times are changing. So going back to my point, story is really important, because even if you're good, you've got to connect with an audience with values. And that's how you're going to help yourself become more choosable.
The age of experts is upon us.
Yeah, totally.
It's true though. So how does someone then, if they are an expert in their niche, or they have these skills and they really want to convey that message and get it across in a compelling way? And I've got another question on top of my mind. Remember, it's back to the timeline thing you were saying beforehand. How can they convey that message in a way that will, help them be able to see their vision come to life and sustain it.
Yeah, it's easy. It's very simple. What you got to do if you're an expert is don't make yourself the hero, make yourself the guide. So if you make yourself the hero and make it all about this is what I've done, this is what I've achieved, you look like a wanker. So it's no good. That's what real estate agents do. Instead, make yourself the guide. So it's a slight tinker of saying, instead of saying, here's an award I won, or here's, I'm a doctor and I earn this much, here's my car, flashy, flashy. It's more, from 20 years of being in this industry, here's the biggest mistake I've seen people make. And it's like, that's a guide going as Obi-Wan Kenobi going to Luke going, don't make this mistake. Or here's the biggest sickness that's coming in my office the last 5 years that could be easily prevented at home. And it's like, okay, well, that's interesting. So you got to be really good at educating your target audience. Start with frequently asked questions and start with answering them. And you've got to publish this stuff. So this is the big thing for experts today. Have the courage to learn media training or camera training to put yourself in front of camera or to get good at writing. It's two forms of communication. It's all word, either spoken or written. Get good at one of the two. That's key. And become a prolific content creator about that particular niche. And what content does is the input that gets the audience, which is the output. And they connect to your story and connect to your expertise. Then if you get seen enough, if you get seen for about 7 hours of content, you become an acquaintance in someone's mind. So Robin Dunbar has that research that says it takes about 7 hours to become an acquaintance, 300 hours to become a best friend. So we need at least 7 hours of content to become trustworthy in someone's mind, quality content. And we need 11 touch points. This is why I'm on your podcast, 11 touch points as well, measure for people to remember you as well in different places. So that's why you should be on podcasts. That's why you should be on Corey's podcast. That's why you should be on social media. That's why you should be in PR. Got to be that memorable person. That's how you create memorability.
It's so crazy because I literally just did a podcast with Daniel Priestley and he was saying the same thing.
Yeah, right.
Like 7 hours, 11 touch points. You just got to get it done. But I really love how you're convey the message across. Like you just got to do it, like, and get over that because you are going to get judged. And one part of it is creating the content. And I find like so many people have content blocks or they're scared to get in front of a camera. And it's like, as you just mentioned, like you can just get training for that skill. Like just go and get the training. And if you want it bad enough, it's like save up the money, work the extra jobs, get the cash, and then get the training. Like as you said before, which I think is really powerful, is like I'm willing to put a house up for it. Like got a house. I'm willing to lose that to see these things come to fruition because like I'm so much more passionate about this, which is so cool. And I like the hooks that you said beforehand. I purchased your PDF on your 77 or 79 hooks, whatever it was.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Pain points. So I really like, it was funny listening to you say those things, like instead of like from a doctor, I was like, that sounds just like the hooks out of that PDF again. I was like,
there's 5 types of headlines you got there. And it's all proven from everything that you consume. What makes a headline in Australia it's either one of 5 headlines. It's gain headlines, pain point headlines, social proof headlines, piggyback headlines, and provocative headlines. And it's not newsworthy unless you use these headlines. So that's good. I live and breathe it. So some people create content and offer a course and that divorces from what they actually do. I actually want to give away what I do. I think it's one of the best boss moves you can actually do is give away stuff or sell things at an affordable price. Because you need that ecosystem for people to come into. And that's what building an audience does. So I really, really want people for 2024, whenever you're listening to this in the new year, to invest in the skill, like pay the money, like Corey said, to be able to become this spokesperson of yourself. Like, because there's stats to say, Corey, like people are more scared of public speaking than they are of death and taxes. Like people terrified. So if there's 82% of people are terrified of public speaking, that means the people who do it are in the top percentile of people that can be seen amongst above their competitors. So that uncomfortable zone of being on camera will, yes, you put judgment aside, but you could be chosen above all these other guys because you're the only guy that exists in that industry because you're popping up saying it. And I've done this with an example, right? Like a client of ours, a good friend of mine, Shelley Johnson. She's like this HR consultant, and he likes HR people. Not many people like HR people.
Yeah, I worked in HR. I know the shade.
And I was on her podcast, My Millennial Career. It's a big podcast. And then she became a client of mine, a coach, and a great friend of mine now. And one of the big fears of her was getting in front of camera and talking. But when we got her and we coached her, and she's already a great writer, so she's already written a book. She's a fantastic writer. But when she put herself out there, people see she's young, she's educated, she's got a master's degree and stuff. She's all on the road doing workshops with big firms. She's a columnist for the Herald now. You know, she's getting headhunted by the top HR people in Australia as you're the face of HR now, all in the space of 9 months since she put herself out there from this. So this is an example of an unlikely thing happening to an industry, which I don't like usually HR. Nothing wrong about it. It just seems boring. But people in HR land, she's become the rock star of HR. Like, who would have thought? Well, not with she's awesome, but if she had not put herself out in front of camera, it wouldn't have happened this fast.
Bang. There, you heard it, guys. I'm curious for you, Matt, when like you had to go through like a moment like in you're talking about your timeline before of like what makes someone when you like automate your like history and you go through it. And I think that's a really powerful exercise. So for everyone listening, I was just like that, like actually just getting like a big piece of paper and just like documenting like all those things that were like, where were the pivotal moments that you changed? Who were the people that like affected you to help like get to like that next level? What was a memory of yours that you've had that you think one of those like core things shaped you, like the story that helped you like get to a next level, like sort of like this HR person?
I'll tell you sometimes Holly Ransom has this great quote. She said, if you want to get a lifetime of advice in an hour, it means just have a coffee with someone. And I had the privilege of having a coffee. I can't say their name, but like it's billionaire. He's a billionaire. And I was like, basically it was a question of, is my family being set up right? Like have I got my structure set up? Is my finances set up for where I'm heading? And I had this multi-billion-dollar coffee with this guy. And he's like, the question was, do you want to be a billionaire or a millionaire? And I'm like, what's the difference? He's like, well, if you want to be a billionaire, you probably will be single for the rest of your life. I'm like, okay. And this is coming from someone who's had a few marriages in their life. And I'm like, okay, why is that? It's like, well, that's what it takes. It's all or nothing. It's hard. You think about 24/7. That's nothing else. That's what the input is required in my view. I'm like, well, millionaire's pretty good. But that conversations are, sometimes I say things like we're 7 conversations away from finding the answer, or we're 2 conversations away from finding this. Conversations is how we discover mathematics. Like without words, without conversation, nothing really can progress. And I think that conversation really honed my mind to purpose. It's like, well, input, output, input, output. So if I want something, how foolish of me to think not of what's the price tag for that. The Bible talks about who would actually set out to build a house without first counting the cost.
What is meant by that? Just quickly.
It's like when you went to buy a house, when you go to buy a house or build a house, how dumb is it if you don't first figure out how much it's going to cost?
Yeah.
Before you start the project, you start building without knowing the cost. And I think we're in danger of that same mistake. Like so many people set out to achieve something, but they have no flipping clue on what they're in for, what it's going to cost them, and are you willing to pay the price? And something, and I've had that privilege of working with multi-billionaires or millionaires or big companies, and they have sacrificed a lot. And it's no judgment on them. It's just a fact. It requires a lot of different sacrifices. It might mean you don't get married. That might mean you don't have good health. A lot of them do focus on that, but it's just so structured because there's not much time. They're all about time management and energy management, which is good things. But I think what I'm getting at. So, what do you want, and what's going to cost you, and if you don't know what the price tag is going to be, and find someone who's ahead of you to be able to say, hey, anyone. Here's a great one line, like anyone you look up to and think is major successful, ask them one question: what was the cost?
Yeah, that is a really powerful question. So like what did you get out of that? Like out of that $1 billion coffee that you had? Like
I don't want to be a billionaire. I don't want to be Bruno Mars. I don't want to be that Bruno. I want to be a billionaire. I don't want to, yeah,
freaking bad. No, actually I don't. Sorry, Bruno.
Yeah, Bruno, you're wrong. I don't want to be a billionaire. Yeah.
How did that like shape your decisions? Like now, like
help get me that helped me. It basically in that moment from that conversation, I was like, it fully disrupted my whole belief at the time that maybe I need to reassess everything. And it really put the purpose instinct in me more for business. And that's where the seed was sown of what do I want out of the thing I'm involved in versus just chasing for progress for no particular reason, just because profit and progress are great, but at what cost? Because there are times in business where you hit moments where you could have huge revenue, but there's not much profit because the structure needs changing and there's fixed costs because lots of employees, your employee are there, and you're working harder but not earning more. But it looks good on paper. And it's like, well, what? And then you start thinking when you're in those moments, what do I want? What do I really want from this? I just want more time to be blah, blah, blah. And you start sounding absolutely dumb to yourself. You're like, well, this thing is not serving my life. I have no time to do the things I actually want to do. But I'm stuck doing this thing that's costing me. And that's where I feel a lot of businesses get when they start breaking through that 7-figure mark to 8 figures. Is when I broke that 7-figure mark, I was like, that's a milestone, but it was more around like how hard do we have to just work to keep this, and putting systems for it. But like it's not as easy as these gurus are saying. A lot of gurus are saying around, you need to build a business that can operate without you. I actually think it's more difficult to do that than you think. There's a difference between being a cog, but having a brain there and someone give a crap about it. That's hard to find people who actually really care about what you built as much as you do. So I think you can get yourself out as a technician in your business, but to treat it like it's a mechanism or like some inhumane utility that just it runs without you. It's just this machine. I don't think that's a very nice way to think about things. When we dehumanize a business, you see your staff as numbers, you see your business as cogs. Yeah, I just think it's like when you see things as you see, it's funnel people. It's like, I like to funnel your grandma. It doesn't sound very nice, does it? It's not very humane. Anyway, here's a little rant about.
No, I get that. I understand it, and I'm passionate about that too. Because what makes sense to me is it's like, well, the solution to that, as you said, was just like, just getting connected back to purpose. Why you do something that's going to charge you up, that you're going to love, that others are going to love, that has like meaning and something behind it, instead of the purpose and the rest of it. Because a lot of guys that I work with, are more at the start of their journey, or like still trying to figure out what to do. It is the stuff in the forebrain. I want leisure. I want holidays. I want a partner. I want lots of money. And all of them say, and I want to do something that's meaningful, but they're thinking about the money and the holidays before the meaning.
Yeah.
Which it's crazy. So, for you, when it comes to like purpose, like currently at the moment, because I'm just like really curious to hit, like see what comes up here. When you're thinking about like when you're going to bed and you're waking up and your mind's just like racing, like what are you thinking about currently?
I'm thinking about, I mean, I'm hungry. No, no.
I
Um,
need to eat, baby.
no, I think about it's very structured in my, as I got older, I'm getting much more structured in my mind. I'm just have these trigger points of, okay, what business I'm involved with, um, what are the priorities, the red light, green light, the kind of red light, orange light, green light priorities that need to be done today. So you got your repeatable week, you got your months, you got your year as well, your goal. But I really care about checking in with my core guys because they're the ones that are keeping the ship going and just building into the who do I need to talk to be encouraged. So there's if I was not to bore everyone with my day to day, every day looks different. But like I have in my day, my EA chunks out working time. So she guards this 1.5 hours a day of things that in my personal world need to get done. So it can be projects or I'm going to read over a strategy or there's something I wanted to tinker with. There's time to be guarded there for me. And I always try and ring up one of my core guys a day and just give them some type of insight of what I'm thinking about. So it's just input and hearing them out. So I like that camaraderie. I love my people. I love tribe. I think you can find your best people. I think the best people in your team are always going to be made, not found. So you can, there's a heart, head, and hands, like you can't hire a hand. The whole person has to come with it. Right? So I can't change a heart, but I can train hands and I can influence and change someone's head by the culture I put them in. So some people have a lazy work ethic, but they're talented. But if I put them into a hustle mentality or really good productivity, it gives them a chance to change. It might be influenced. So that they're the three things I look for. But yeah, when I'm about my day, yeah, just thinking about just humanize everything, just like drinking good food, drinking good stuff, and eating as much as I like good stuff. I'm only a small dude, so I skip breakfast and intermittent most of the time. As I'm getting older, it's harder to keep the weight off. Actually, like I so much more, But anyway,
Nah, I feel you with that. Like I compete professionally in bodybuilding competitions, and I was like, man, it was so easy to get shredded. Like like six,
yeah,
7 years ago. Hit 30 now. I'm like, oh, this is a little bit more difficult than usual. I'm gonna really be active. So yeah, I feel you with that. How does all that for you when you think about like your purpose and like your company's purposes and your brand's purpose? Like what's the purpose that connects you?
identity. I absolutely love and obsessed around helping people form their identity or articulate their identity because of my adoption and where I came from, being adopted from Korea, not knowing my biological parents. My mum and dad divorced when I was 6, moved 13 times as a kid, saw my mum struggle financially, um, being bullied as a kid for my race, then being mentored through community groups as a teenager, which showed me the power of mentorship. And it was always a wrestle being an adoptee about who am I, because I look a certain way, but I'm not Asian. Like I look Asian, I got hardware that's Asian, but software
Hey,
that's not.
yes,
Yeah,
operations.
I got banana white on the inside. Like I'm completely I did not identify as what I look like. I accept it. It's fine. I'm a biologically Korean dude. But
What age did you move over from Korea, if you don't mind me asking? Do
uh,
you have any memories from Korea or not?
nah, I was like 4 months
Oh,
old.
4 months, you're like, yeah, little token, yeah.
Yeah, little
Yeah.
chub thing. Yeah, so identity. So it's funny when this is the power of storytelling too. Like, isn't it a coincidence that a boy he was struggling with identity, who was adopted, is now therefore helping kids with their identity and CEOs and brands with their identity. Because when you can define yourself, then you become, that's the first step to be able to become resilient and confident in yourself. Because if you don't have an input of this is who I am, here are my values, you've got to input it in yourself. Then the only reference you have is everyone else. So you need to internally reference you, or people are just going to input into your identity who they think you are. And that's all you've got to work with.
That is some Friedrich Nietzsche shit right there. Right up. Yeah. My audience are gonna love this conversation, and right now, because I know I'm like in the back of my mind, I'm like, I got this question, and I know they'd be probably asking the same. They'd be like, all right, help us get identity. Like, if we're in here, someone's like, okay, like I wanna get my identity. I wanna like really solidify that. Like, how do I do it?
There's three columns in my head that help me form my identity. There is what society says. That's one data point. You're beautiful if you're this height in this weight. You're successful, you have this much. That seems to be one of the main metrics of identity that we've got by default. The second thing is science. So what does science say that you are? So what society says you are with beauty and with, say, obesity, you're fat or you're not attractive, could be contrary to what science says you are. And then the third thing is spirituality or scripture or things that science and society have actually been influenced by, like we've interpreted this way. Like this is what the Stoics say you are. This is what God says you are. And it's based on our innate ability to give value to something that actually doesn't have any value at all without our attention. It's a very deep thing. That's why I love personal brand. That's why I love identities, because it's deep as the ocean. It's undiscoverable. Like this pen is no use to me unless I give it value. Like it's been intelligent, it's been made, it's got a use, right? It's been intelligently designed, but I can only, it has no worth unless we use it or we have a utility for it. And it's the same for us. We give life to dead things. This can't think, this can't move, this can't make choices, but I can do it for it. So therefore we can self-create. So I need references to be able to make myself and create myself. So if all I've got is column one, which is society, then I'm rendered to a very changing current of culture. You know what I mean? And then science is a little bit more objective. Then you've got thousands of years of spirituality. And then you, above all these three things, and this is finishing up this framework, is you as the chooser. You're not born a winner or a loser, you're born a chooser. That's what my quote is. So I get to be able to say, okay, at least I admit that I subscribe to beauty in this way. That's why I buy this stuff. And at least I can articulate and defend myself against body shamers that I'm actually not obese. I'm actually within the BMI or whatever the stats say. And I can subscribe to that I am more than a conqueror because Jesus Christ says I am. You know, like you can that with that, I'm the chooser in that, but there is good data points to be able to reference from. And there's my own history. And like, what do I think of myself based on these things? Yeah. So it's good. Sometimes who you are is whose you are. Are you cultures? Do you belong to culture? Do you belong to God? Do you belong to science? Like, yeah, it's a deep question.
Oh, so cool. That's so cool. And how do you like, just like really quickly on this one, because we're running out of time here. Like, how do you help define that for people? Is it just you just dot point all of those different areas, and that's like the.
This is part of the new course I'm doing with Social Kung Fu. So Social Kung Fu has white belt to black belt for verbal self-defense at the moment. So it's like, how do you verbally spar and verbally deflect gaslighting, gossip, accusations? The second course we're building out at the moment with psychologists is about self-image and body image. And we have a glossary of, in the culture column that I made, of multiple choice things. Like it's just based on data points on what we vote as what's most important. Harvard did research on a group of students in the 1960s on what was the most important value to them. Fame ranked 12. They did the same study in 2007 on students, and Fame ranked one. There was a massive shift between big me and little me in society. And that is that column there of culture. It will change every decade, or what the value metrics are. Because I mean, back in those days, with the first study was done, it was all war and related to that. Like, it was around survival. And so I think, yeah, we give people the data points based on votes to be able to help form a formula for themselves.
Oh, so cool. Love it. I love it. That's honestly so cool. Like, what are you doing there? Because that is like that is hardcore personal development. Like, I love that, especially like getting in deep there. Like, it's so good and so powerful. So thank you for doing that. I'd love to give the listeners, from like the conversation that we've had, one challenge that they can take action from listening to this right now. What challenge would you like to give them?
Stop being a wimp and get in front of the camera and share your bloody story. If you want something, then that's one of your first steps, is become a bloody good historian. Be Speak it from a place of love and God, as a guide, not as someone who wants to prove themselves. It's just, this stuff's going to serve you. I hope it serves you. It served me. And invest in yourself, and that's pay a guy like Corey to get personal development. Like, come to me if you want some help with your branding. Like, it's as simple as that. The most fastest way to upgrade yourself is to be able to work with someone who's done it. So invest and stop being a wimp. I really mean that. Life's too bloody short to be in your head. So go for it. If you want it, put your money where your mouth is.
Put your damn money where your mouth is. Let's go. And so everyone who's listening who may not know who you are, where can they get like in your world in terms of, I don't know, your like newsletter, social media, like where can they like start getting involved and educated on the things that you're doing?
Yeah, Instagram is where I hang out the most. It's my primary platform. So just go to Matt Purcell Official, and you can type my name in Google and check out that I'm a legit person, like a legit human being. There's news articles and stuff to find on what I think about. But thanks so much for having me, Corey. This was a really great, like, spontaneous, like, it was good. It wasn't scripted. You
Yeah.
know, it was just a cool chat.
Yeah, which is why I like to keep them, man. I just do my research and like I just was like inspired by you and your story. So like thank you for taking the time out to come to this. And also your website's really cool, like mattpurcell.com. Like you've actually got heaps of cool things in there. I just like purchased your like being a business owner within personal development. You're like, let's run through hooks and purchase that. I'm like, that's really cool. And I think your masterclass, I think we're gonna go do that as well. I think it looks
Nice.
awesome. So thanks for like putting all of that together and coming onto the show. Had a really awesome chat.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, man.